Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and up today I'm going to tell you all about the released WWE star that AEW might make a top priority. I'm going to tell you the other AEW star that might be set for surgery, and I'm going to tell you all about a rather horrific car accident that one of the released NXT wrestlers was in before WWE let him go.
Plus, the real reason WWE have gone back to taping shows, the real reason Will Ospreay turned down the WWE a few years ago, and some clues on the future of the revival. This is the news.
But we're going to kick things off by talking once more about released wrestlers for a refreshing change. Grilling JR, the paid podcast, it's Jim Ross, obviously, it's Conrad Thompson, it's great stuff, Conrad's tremendous, Jim Ross is like one of the best storytellers ever. Speaking last week about all the WWE releases, and obviously Jim Ross is in AEW, so it's like, hey Jim, man, who do you think AEW should go after? Who do you think they should prioritise? And he had one big name in mind. He said, I think that Rusev is the kind of guy you can bring in and he'd be a great contender for any title. Would I like to see a Jon Moxley versus Rusev match? Of course I would. I'm a wrestling fan. Why wouldn't I? To me, he would be my top priority. Now, there's some other stuff here as well. He puts Rusev over pretty huge. He says that he hasn't brought up the idea of signing Rusev with top AEW management yet, but he does put him over big time. He says that WWE missed on him majorly by not capitalizing on his population, I almost said, on his popularity when he was getting that push as part of Rusev Day. He said, Rusev is a guy who is capable of having some major pay-per-view main events with the top talents in our company, and anyone would be smart to sign him. My quotations are an absolute mess today, but hard to disagree with a single word of that. I think Rusev's the biggest name that was released. Well, I mean, Kurt Angle's the biggest name, obviously, but Rusev is the biggest name wrestler, full-time wrestler, that was released. I think companies will be falling over themselves to sign this guy. I think he'll have already had several phone calls and answering machine messages. Obviously, signing people is very difficult at the moment because AEW and other companies have lost a far bigger chunk of their revenue than WWE have of theirs. So I don't know necessarily if anyone's going to sign him straight away, but he's probably already had offers. He's probably had feelers. I would bet on him going to AEW as well. He's an entertainer, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think in an ideal world, disregarding the current ongoing global situation, all of these wrestlers who've been released would get picked up by the likes of AEW, MLW, Impact, a whole host of other companies. That may not happen, considering what's going on at the moment, but I think you could argue easily that Rusev is the top name, the name most people would want to sign. And personally, I know that we're going to get accusations of turning AEW into sort of Impact, or TNA as it was, sweeping up cast-aside WWE talent. If I was AEW, I'd sign Aiden English as well, because I feel like the two of them, whilst you don't have to put them together, do seem to work really well together. And there's ground that hasn't been covered, and I just... Personally, I was so disappointed that there was no investment in them as a duo by WWE. They put the title on Rusev on Christmas Day, which is usually one of their least watched shows of the year, and they just completely missed the boat with Rusev Day. And I'm not saying you have to completely rehash Rusev Day, and obviously you can't call it that in AEW, but I without question, he is the top name. I love Aiden English. I think he's phenomenally talented, whether he's wrestling, whether he's in commentary. You know, even if you just want to use him on Dark to start off with, I'd be absolutely fine with that. I think he's really talented, and I hope that, well, not just those guys, everyone gets signed, but I hope those two in particular do.
Yeah, I mean, like Aiden English is a really interesting dude. He's got a lot of career paths available to him. He can wrestle, he can manage, he can do the commentary, like you said. I think he'll get picked up no problem as well. Rusev, immediately, you put that guy in your promotion and he's immediately, you know, one of the top 4, 5, 6 guys. He's a no-brainer for me. I hope it happens.
Right, let's talk a little bit about WWE and some good news coming out of them regarding tapings. WWE have switched back to taping a lot of their shows rather than, thank God, recording them live, or I should say releasing them live on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, which was just a dreadful decision by all round. And the reason behind this, according to Dave Meltzer on the latest episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, is the fact that the USA Network, who carry Raw and NXT, and Fox, who of course carry SmackDown, have told WWE that they aren't going to cut their payments should WWE and Vince McMahon, of course, wish to pre-tape the shows instead. I think there was basically concern around WWE that yes, they are allowed to do a certain number of pre-tape shows, but they were worried that the networks were going to come down hard on them and say, well, you promised this many live shows, you didn't give us this many live shows, so we're going to cut how much we are paying you. And therefore, Vince was risking the health of all his employees, chasing that dollar, of course. Great news this for all involved, but amazing that they had to actually clarify this because, yeah, it's a necessity, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this taping schedule's a lot better, 100%, than travelling crews of people across the country or the state or whatever 3 times a week. That was mental. It was nuts. They're going to give people like 2 weeks in between to quarantine and stuff. And, you know, if people do fall ill and stuff, you'd hope that symptoms would emerge during that time and they'd be able to write people out and stuff. It's a much better situation. There's no denying that at all. I'm very glad of it. If WWE is going to continue, and it looks like they most certainly are, this is the best way to do it. However, the debate is still open. Should they be taping at all? It's a really tough one.
Exactly. In case you're wondering, reports are that they may be taping right up until mid-July. So no break for WWE by the looks of things.
Yeah, no break at all. One guy who might be taking a break, but not for good reasons, MJF. In AEW, he tweeted something worrying last week, actually. Somebody tweeted at him saying, "Get off your lazy ass and wrestle more." He quote tweeted that and said, "I wish I could put my body on the line more for you guys. I truly care so much about you being entertained during your hour of need. Unfortunately, something awful has happened to me and it has gradually gotten worse. I can't comment on what the issue is at this time." He followed up to this on Sunday, just yesterday, with another tweet saying, "My issue has gotten worse. It's looking like I might need surgery. I'm genuinely trying to do my very best to come back for you guys." So, right, obviously, MJF is MJF. He is very rare for MJF to break his character on social media, let's say that. So this tells me one of two things with this situation. Number one, he's working because he's MJF. Number two, it is very serious indeed, because it would have to be something very serious indeed for MJF to break that character. Now, I obviously hope that he's fine and, he is just off TV because of precautions due to the current situation. But he hasn't wrestled in a while. His last match was on the 11th of March episode of Dynamite. It was him, the Butcher and the Blade, in a trios match against Jurassic Express. He's barely been seen since. He was a manager for Wardlow in a recent episode of Dark, but that was pre-taped ages ago. Hope he's all right. Hope that whatever ails him isn't too serious. Hope we're just being worked, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Anytime MJF is nice, I get concerned. Yes, it may well be a work, but I don't know. By the sounds of that, it sounds pretty serious. I think you've covered really everything there. We'd love to see him back in the ring, and if he is legitimately hurt or has concerns regarding wrestling going forward, we of course wish him well in his recovery. Speaking of non-WWE people, I've crowbarred that one in there.
That'll do.
Will Ospreay, friend of the channel, alongside the person he was interviewed by, Chris Van Vliet. Yes, he was interviewed by Chris Van Vliet recently regarding his reasoning for choosing New Japan over the likes of WWE and TNA in 2016. And he talked about the fact that while he knew the American promotions, he wasn't that familiar with New Japan. All he knew is that was where Finn Balor came from. So in his mind, this is the reasoning why he chose New Japan over the bigger American promotions. It was his best bet was to go there, learn the tricks of the trade, and see what happens. A year later, Ospreay was convinced that New Japan was the right place for him. He'd already been offered a place in WWE's Cruiserweight Classic tournament, but he turned it down. He said, look, if I'm not 100% invested in this, I really shouldn't do it, which I think is very nice and honest of him. And then when asked about going to WWE in the future, he says, with what their current product is, I'm just not interested at all. Until things start to change, I don't think I'll be interested in WWE at all. No real surprise there. Obviously, we got a chance to work with Will Ospreay, a phenomenally talented wrestler. He defies gravity a lot of the time in the ring. And, his development in New Japan is something all of us here at WhatCulture have just really been enjoying, Andy.
Yeah, I can't imagine him becoming the wrestler he is today, and that is one of the best in the world, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people. I can't imagine him doing that in the WWE developmental system, because the WWE developmental system isn't as wrestling in the ring centric as what Ospreay can do in New Japan. And it's the perfect environment for him. I wouldn't want to see him anywhere else at this stage. I think he fits it to a T, and his game has evolved so much. He's improved every single weakness you can think of with Will Ospreay. I mean, you'll always have people who aren't watching saying, oh, he can't sell and all this stuff. But, man, you're really showing that you haven't been watching the dude if that's a criticism of him today, because he has taken these every weaknesses and he has ironed them out. He's not a flippy dude. He's not a spot monkey. He can do incredible athletic stuff, but he's evolved into a tremendous in-ring storyteller, a really rich, varied pro wrestler. Love him. Love that he's in New Japan. Love that he's loving life in New Japan. Perfect place, perfect wrestler, perfect time.
Yeah, one of the best wrestlers, as you said, last year, without question. Going on to hopefully bigger and better things once this all calms down. Of course, New Japan is completely shut down at the moment for obvious reasons. But, can't wait to see where he goes next, and understandable that he wants nothing to do with WWE, especially considering how they've dealt with his mate Ricochet.
Yeah, wouldn't be a good fit there. Last couple of stories, nothing major here. Well, I guess it is kind of major. This is gross, right? So, one of the NXT guys released by WWE last week was Dorian Mack, the former Dan Matha, famously known for that debut angle in 2017, I want to say, where they built him up through weeks and weeks of vignettes and then just had Samoa Joe murder him on the ramp and he never showed up again. It was unique. But he tweeted over the weekend saying, boy, do I have a crazy story to tell all of you. From the world getting locked down to getting injected through my car window while being released by WWE, it's been a wild, and I mean wild, 21 days. He's going to put details on his Instagram Live, he says here as well, but there's some photos here from his Instagram, Twitter account, of this car accident, the aftermath of it. The guy has a hole in the back of his head that's been sewn back together, but he's sitting there, photo of him in the hospital with blood everywhere. The car is a mess. This poor bugger has had a rough month. I hope that he lands on his feet after this. This guy never really found his place on NXT television or whatever, but my God, those photos are minging.
Yeah, awful stuff, as you said there. We all wish him well in his recovery. And as we keep saying, if you can in any way support these wrestlers who've just been dropped from out of nowhere by WWE, please do that, whether it be buying their merch or just, supporting the things that they are doing on social media. They really need your help, and if any of them are watching this, as I keep saying, please don't hesitate to contact WhatCulture. We'd love to help promote that sort of thing, and I'd love to interview some of the guys who've been released. Don't forget to tag them on Twitter if you want me to chat to them. Finally, let's talk a little bit about, the artist, I was going to say formerly known as The Revival, soon to be known perhaps as The Revolt. Dash Wilder, Scott Dawson, although they're not called that anymore. Scott Dawson is now Dax Harwood on social media, and Dax FTR on Twitter tweeted this image as his new profile pic. Many people speculating that is the new image for the tag team, and that sort of clarifies and confirms that they are going to be, Andy Murray, The Revolt.
Yeah, you got a little R, a little V in that thing, The Revolt. I like the name. It is obviously very similar to The Revival. Makes sense. The ring names are interesting. They sound like old territory guys, and that is clearly their biggest influence. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. I like it, man. I'm into this, and I hope it's not long before we see them wrestle again.
We reported on this over the weekend, Andy Murray. Did you see what WWE's plans were had they come back?
Yes, I did. Thank God they got out of there.
What are you thinking, Vince? You old git idiot. What was that?
Old git idiot. OGI.
Anyway, let's move on to your Twitter questions. That'll cheer me up a little bit. First question today comes from Aaron Preston. Controversial on this. Aaron says, what if, and this is the most horrendous but WWE thing ever, the Drake Maverick participation in the Cruiserweight title tournament is a work? And he goes on and wins. I have a horrible sinking feeling that this will happen. Now, Andy Murray, I am the man behind accusing many things in wrestling of being a work. I haven't gone so far as to suggesting Drake Maverick's emotional video response and subsequent, departure from WWE is a work, but there is some speculation about this online. What do you think of it?
I think that if it is a work, Drake Maverick is a tremendous actor because that video he released was just the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. It was a little bit weird in that thing, how he spoke about, I've got to win these 3 matches or whatever in the tournament and all this stuff. But like, I don't know, man. This seems like a bit of a wacky conspiracy theory to me. I think it would be grossly insensitive. I mean, they're capable of being grossly insensitive, don't get me wrong. But towards the other wrestlers who were released and have lost their jobs, this would be a terrible thing to do. Just an awful idea.
Yeah, I'm not going so far as to say it to work. I didn't mind saying it with people like Matt Hardy and Jon Moxley. That's slightly different. That was them leaving WWE of their own volition. Drake just being released as part of these horrific cuts. Although, like you say, Andy, I wouldn't put it past WWE, and if that is the case, give the Oscar to Drake Maverick. Ross Oswilliam gives us our second question of the day, talking about the Money in the Bank match, which I only just found about last night, and... what? Anyway, Ross says, do you think the 2 Money in the Bank matches should happen at the exact same time? And for the winners, not only this, ready, Andy, for the winners to grab the wrong briefcases, with the refs then explaining that they can only challenge for the opposing gender's title.
Yeah, I really want to see Dana Brooke cash in on Braun Strowman 3 months down the line. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I kind of like the idea of these matches going on at the same time, because then you can just wrap all the craziness up in one. You could even do the thing like, remember that Dean Ambrose-Luke Harper match a few years ago where they went away and they came back in the arena and it went on for like 2 hours or whatever, technically. I don't mind the idea of like action just coming in all the way through the show. You start off and these guys are brawling on the bottom floor, and then someone has a match in the arena and you come back half an hour later and oh my god, they're on the 3rd floor and Dana Brooke's got a knife. Hopefully not. But you know, I kind of like the idea of that. I think that'd be chaotic. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be unique. The match is already all those things. Let's go all in.
Look, WWE were terrible last week. We cannot get away from that, and we're not going to let them off the hook, going forward. Having said that, when they announced this match, I just thought, you mad bastards. Early predictions for spots. Quite obviously, someone is going to get their face shoved in a photocopier, and then there's going to be copy after copy after copy of someone's face just smushed up against it, and I'm 100% here for that. It's insane. Climb the corporate ladder. God, you're awful sometimes, WWE, but I'm kind of looking forward to it, Andy.
Yeah, it's going to be the weirdest match of all time, and this is in a year where we've seen the Firefly Funhouse and the Boneyard.
2020, what is going on? Final question today comes from Marky Louis G, who says, after all this, and wrestling can be enjoyed by live crowds, and WWE try that again, Adam, put your teeth back in. And WWE possibly rehiring people, could you see WWE making a documentary out of all this?
I think there's a very strong chance that in a few years we're going to see this given the 24 treatment, or like the recent Ruthless Aggression series where they made everything up and they painted themselves as the hero and all of this, and changing the name from WWF to WWE was a strategic decision by genius Vince McMahon and had nothing to do with the Panda guys. Yeah, man, they're going to totally twist this around. They're going to be like, the company would have died if we hadn't released these people go, but we look after them and we brought them back. They're totally going to spin it. They're 100% going to do that. They're going to make themselves look like the heroes and all this, when in reality, they have villainized themselves to a degree we haven't seen in a long time.
Yes, they are 100% going to do a documentary about this, babyface themselves throughout it all, and say, basically, without us, wrestling would have ceased to exist in the world. That's what's going to happen, so you have been warned. Right, let's move on to today's and finally, and the image that has been whirling itself around the internet over the weekend. Jay Gorman actually sent this to us on Friday, but we didn't have a chance to show it you then, so I want to show you this. He's tweeted us saying, paid homage to WhatCulture WWE's finest to pass some time today. This Andy Murray is spectacular. Adam Cleary in his NXT yellow hoodie, of course. There's me saying, am I the best wrestling reporter ever? There's hashtag good afternoon Adam Nicholas. There's the Dadley Boys. There's, of course, Simon Miller with his why, here's why image. There is Phil Chambers as a panda. And Andy Murray, you have a Scottish flag made out of the word Poosh.
This is tremendous. It's the best thing I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of things in my 32 years on this earth. I loved it. I popped my face off for this thing all weekend long, and my favourite part is Panda Phil.
Panda Phil is spectacular.
It was made to be, man.
Can we get this on a t-shirt?
Yes. I mean, we'll probably have to pay Jay some money for that, but
I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with that. Jay, spectacular work. Thank you so much. We've seen some people sending us loads of different things whilst they're bored in isolation. So thank you for anything that you send us. It really is much appreciated. It always sticks a smile on our face. Right, let us know your thoughts on that and all of today's news stories in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on your iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. Also, don't forget to join myself and the Daily Boys 4 p.m. today, right here on WhatCulture WWE's YouTube channel for the Raw preview. We'll be discussing all the goings on and, of course, answering all your questions as well. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Well, actually, there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hope.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. You can follow us all. All the emails, all the Twitter handles even are on Jay Goldman's brilliant photo that he drew for us. Follow us all on there and at What Culture WWE, of course. But for now, thanks to Andy Murray. Thanks to you for watching. Happy 420, everyone, and we will see you soon.